I'd have to remind the Secretary what happened in 2009, shortly after the Status of Forces Agreement was changed, and these men and women entrusting us, surrendering their arms to defend themselves to us, were reassured, and we were reassured by the Iraqi government that they would be secure, they would be protected, and shortly thereafter was the first incursion, several dozen deaths, several hundred wounded. Our credibility is at issue, ladies and gentlemen. Not only our credibility in Camp Ashraf, but it seems to me our credibility is at issue around the world when we make a promise and don't keep it. I'd want my Secretary of State under any administration to consider that very important fact. And then in the post-2009 world, we see that European Parliament members, members of Congress, human rights organizations, lawyers, others are able to visit the camp. Suddenly, all those visits are cut off, and not only are those visits cut off, but after the latest incursion, we can't even get medical personnel in to see them, Madam Secretary. In 2010, the EU and the UK pull together very distinguished panelists, review all the evidence, all the testimony, everything they can find, and conclude as a matter of fact and as a matter of law, this is a group that should not be considered a foreign terrorist organization. They are a legitimate political opposition group committed to Democrat reform. Off the list. We all know what happened when the matter was brought before the Circuit Court here in Washington, D.C. Now, 7-8 months later, we're still waiting for a decision that obviously involves multiple agencies, but includes most primarily the State Department, perhaps the Defense Department as well. One would wonder how the Defense Department could be opposed to it, given the fact that the Iranians are supporting various militias and other terrorists and soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan to kill American troops at the present time, but still focusing on the Department of State. Let's talk about Libya for a moment. No-fly zone. Understanding other countries are going to send in military advisors to support a rebel force, an armed rebel force about whom we know nothing, under the guise of humanitarian support. If nothing else, if not America's credibility, if it's not keeping a promise, if nothing else, the protection and support and security of the men and women of Ashraf is certainly a humanitarian cause that the entire world ought to be supporting. We've been focused on al-Qaeda. We're now focused on potentially the problems in Yemen and homegrown terrorists. But there's no greater terrorist threat, even bigger than al-Qaeda, than a nuclear-armed Iran. We need to understand that.